Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Neurology Through Art and Time. It is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Audrias Pliopoulos, who will be speaking on artistic explorations of thought. Dr. Pliopoulos obtained his medical degree from the Pritzker School of Medicine at the University of Chicago, and then did a complete adult neurology residency training at the Mayo Clinic, followed by child neurology training at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, where our training intersected under the wise guidance of Dr. William Logan, who is also a talented choral singer. Dr. Pliopoulos then returned to Chicago, and set up Alzheimer's Disease Research Laboratory, along with multiple Alzheimer's disease clinics. His practice spanned from pediatrics to geriatrics, and he had a very lifelong strong interest in assisting children with severe cerebral palsy. He pioneered techniques to improve and prevent pulmonary complications in children with severe CP. He was also founder and past chairman of the Pediatric Long-Term Care section of the American Medical Directors Association. Now, for over 30 years, he has been both a professional artist as well as a neurologist and neuroscientist, and has been artistically exploring the origins of thinking and of consciousness, and what defines us and makes us human. His artistic approaches have included large-scale paintings, prints on paper, site-specific installations, and light sculptures, which are absolutely astonishingly beautiful. He has used images from his own brain MRIs and EEG, and has incorporated these into his artworks to express the complexities of neuronal networks and multiple cortical layers that underlie consciousness and memory. His most recent explorations have included taking the art off the walls and putting it on beautiful silk scarves that are really, again, illuminating. In addition, he has been a lifelong strong advocate for the arts, culture, archaeology, and human rights of the individuals of his Lithuanian ancestry, and has developed beautiful presentations in his Hope and Spirit exhibition and Siberian Souls. He has had numerous distinctions, awards, accolades, and has garnered the distinction of being named Man of the Year by the Balzekas Institute of Lithuanian Culture in Chicago. And so, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Audrias Pliopoulos and his artistic explorations of thought.
Well, thank you very much, Ingrid, for such a nice introduction. You flatter me. Thank you very much. The piece on the screen is called Dreams Explorations. So I'm welcoming the audience to accompany me on this exploration through some of the dreams that I've had over the past many decades in my artistic explorations. I'll start off my talk with stealing a fraction of a slide from 1 week ago exactly, from Ingrid's talk a week ago, where she quoted Leonardo da Vinci. The most praiseworthy form of painting is what it resembles what it imitates. Now, in my own artwork, it's a little bit different from that, a little bit in a different fashion, where the entire oeuvre of work that I've done over many decades resembles the cognitive processes as they develop in us as human beings from childhood through adulthood, particularly through those time periods that are very formative in our lives. There really is no exit from the experiences that we have when we grow up, and the effect that it has on our developing nervous system, our thought processes, which then reverberate throughout our entire lives. And that plays a recurrent theme throughout my many different series of artwork. This photograph was taken several decades ago on Roland Street, where I was born and raised in Toronto. and there really is no exit from those childhood events. Now I'm fast forwarding to the University of Chicago, where I went to college and medical school. And I'm going to include some sort of biographical information about myself to give a kind of an idea of how this all developed and how these seminal events in my life played themselves out, and how I am trying to recreate some of those events and others, particularly in students right now in the projects that I'm undertaking. So when I was in high school, I was enamored with physics, atomic physics at that time in the mid-1960s. It was a very exciting time. Atomic particles new ones were being discovered every single week. Quarks were just being hypothesized at the University of Chicago as existing. And I went to the University of Chicago because it was a premier atomic physics place. That was where the atom was first split. And the Enrico Fermi Institute was there. So I went there. I was very fortunate to get a full scholarship to study physics. The first year went very well, but then the second year was very strange because there was a requirement to take 2 quarters of biology. And I couldn't understand why I needed to take this. I went to administration, begged and pleaded, I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with salamanders and frogs and anything to do with biology. I'll study Greek, I'll study Aristotle, anything but this. And they said, well, if we let you do that, we can, but you won't get a degree afterwards. So it's just in the requirements. So I said, okay, fine, I got to suffer through it. So I showed up in class, and this was the teacher. His name was Richard Mentel. On the left side is what he looked like at that time in the late 60s, early 70s. On the right side is a more mature picture. He's passed away about 5 years ago. And he had an MD, PhD, and was teaching biology. Just started teaching biology at the university. And he was an incredibly dynamic teacher. Sometimes he gets so excited he can stand up on the tables and explain aspects of biology. So it was a performance that he was doing every single time his class. It was something to look forward to because of the entertainment value. Well, when he got into the talking about the brain and the 100 billion neurons we have, their interconnections, it just stunned me. How is it that this organ produces thought, consciousness? It produces us as human beings. How does that happen? That is a much more interesting problem than knowing why is this table I'm sitting next to exist, or the chair I'm sitting on exists. So it's his influence that shifted me into neurology, neurobiology, and I just had to pursue this line of investigation instead of atomic physics. So he played a very important role in my own personal history. But then getting back to my events at the University of Chicago, when I was a medical student is when I started painting. And over the 4 years of medical school, I painted more and more and more, and the passion for art developed. Well, the seed for painting, passion for painting, came from this fellow, Alius Chisiakas. I had a chance to visit with him about 5 years ago. This is just a few months before he passed away. He was living in Edmonton, Alberta at the time. And he was in childhood, about 2 years older than me, and he was a hooligan. He was in constant trouble. And for example, one thing that he, at the age of 14, already had obtained a motorcycle. Now, that wasn't legal then, as it's not now. How he did it, how he got the money from, I have no idea. But it was an awful lot of fun scooting around Toronto on sitting on the motorcycle with him. But one summer, and he still, this is in Edmonton, his motorcycle is a lifelong passion of his, which he never gave up on. One summer, his parents decided to protect Toronto from him and put him into art school. And I would visit him almost every other day. And to me, it was absolutely stunning how he was able to start with a blank, a white piece of canvas, and then eventually put lines on there, more lines, the colors, and eventually ended up with something like this. This is a painting that he did that I have in my possession. How can you start from nothing and create something of beauty? That just absolutely stunned me. And when I was already 10, 12 years old of age at that time, that seed started to grow when I was at the University of Chicago in medical school. And by the time I graduated medicine, I was really in a quandary. Should I go continue with medicine, or should I just go into art? Friends of mine convinced me, at least finish up your internship at Wisconsin, which I did in Madison. And then I dropped out of medicine entirely, moved to the East Coast, set up a studio, and started doing art. Now, at first I started painting, just like Algas did, and this is one of my early paintings. And I show this because if people then see what I did later, they'll say, well, I have no artistic talent. I think I do have a little bit of artistic talent. So at least it showed up in one of my paintings amongst several other ones that I have. This actually I did when I was in Montreal. I had an externship at the Montreal Neurological Institute. During those 2 months, I composed this piece and painted it. I very quickly then transitioned into mixed media structures, sculptures such as these are about 1.5 meters wide and tall, with light systems, doorways with light systems in them, mirror systems of other windows with projected lights, and with sound accompaniments with them as the lights would change. So these were in like 1978, 79, and these were very avant-garde pieces at that time, and as they would be right now, actually, when I look at art as being displayed in galleries and museums. Now, the things were very successful at that time. I was on the East Coast, had a lot of art exhibits, write-ups, sales were taking place. I even had an exhibit at the one of the Smithsonian museums. My pieces were up there for a year, which was an incredible thing, just launching myself into my own personal art career and getting it ready in a museum show was really quite an accomplishment. And another thing happened was I had a chance to meet Ivan Karp. He's in the picture here on the left. He's the fellow standing here. He's an extremely important person in the history of contemporary art. He discovered and promoted Rauschenberg, Lichtenstein, Jasper Johns, and a person you probably recognize here, Andy Warhol. So it's because of Ivan Karp that all these the 1960s art dominated the world. And this is on the right-hand side. It's a portrait of Ivan Karp that Andy Warhol did. I don't know how I was able to get a meeting with him. A dignitary like this, you don't get to see. I don't remember how I was able to finagle it, but I spent a half hour with him showing him my artwork. And his comments were about my art. It was very elegant, impressive, very beautiful, extremely original. I've never seen artwork like this before. So this was really a tremendous compliment, and he encouraged me to continue doing what I was doing. And he would follow me. But after 3 years of doing art and indulging myself, I started to feel very, very guilty that I had accumulated a lot of knowledge of neurology, and I wasn't doing anything with it. There's a parable in a statement of what Jesus said, that you do not take a lit candle and cover it with a bushel basket. Well, that's exactly what I did. I was doing. I had a candle of potentially helping people in neurology, and I wasn't using my abilities. I was sort of covering it up. Then I realized I was making a fundamental error. The fundamental error was that I thought that you had to choose either art or medicine, one or the other. You can't do both. And I realized, wait a minute, I'm a smart fellow. I'm a University of Chicago graduate, but I have a diploma that says I'm smart right on it. And I should be able to blend these things together. And so I decided, nope, I got to do things differently. I then went to the Mayo Clinic to do my neurology, and as Ingrid mentioned, at the Hospital for Sick Children with Child Neurology, and decided that I have to blend my neurobiology interests into my art and do it concurrently with my interests in clinical medicine. And these things have been successful. I've had a lot of publications, received almost $3 million in research grants. And in terms of the world of art, I stopped keeping track of it a number of years ago. There have been well over 50 individual exhibits, over 100 group shows. My art is in many universities and museums internationally. So things that, but still my fascination with the mind, the brain. How is it that this takes place? How is it? It's just fascinating. It's aspects of this I pursued in my clinical work and my basic research activities in my neuroscience, and also in my artwork. I've been exploring where does thinking come from? Where does consciousness come from? How is it that we become aware of ourselves? If we're aware of ourselves, become aware of others, then communication starts. Communication, society, philosophy, theology. Basically, what is it that makes us human beings? And I've turned my artist studio into neurobiology research laboratory. I'll just go into a little bit of detail about this particular piece, Dreams Explorations. I incorporate many, the neuronal patterns that you see drawn here were by Ramon Cajal over 100 years ago. I incorporate many different layers, just like in ourselves, there are many different layers over time that accumulate to produce us as the current being that we are right now. And incorporate my own electroencephalograms and my own brain scan images. And here, but I hide these things away. And here you see the kind of a yellowish line go up and down. That's my EEG, thinking creative thoughts, as you see it coursing around. And then in this piece of my MRI is included the frontal, the portion of it. You see the edge of it right here. So I'm including in all my pieces my own brain, both the physical structure of it as an MRI structure, and also the electrical activity of the physiological part of it. And underlying all of the redness are transformed photographs. And I include these photographs because of the content that they have, which then are reflected in the title of the piece. And I transform the image. This image isn't there under the neurons, but it's been transformed and changed. And I do that in keeping with the way, we have very many memories, visual memories that we store and carry with us all the time. But we don't have filing cabinets of photographs in our head. They're transformed into other networks. So I transform it in this fashion. Now, under Dreams Explorations is this photograph, a transformed image of it. And this is on the top of a cliff in Sagres, Portugal. And here on the right-hand side, you see the Atlantic Ocean. This Sagres is at the most westerly tip of continental Europe. This is where Henry the Navigator of Portugal had established his fleet. And this is on these paths here is where Christopher Columbus walked, where he learned how to sail in those fleets. And this is where he dreamed about traveling west to reach the new lands. And so that's where the Explorations and Dreams of the title comes from. And that's how you end up with the final piece, which is on canvas. And it is 5 feet by 6 feet, not 2 meters wide, the original piece. Now, this is a popular piece that was picked up by the American Academy of Neurology. For 50 years, the journal Neurology was published, and on the front cover, either it was just a pure green cover or the title of the content, table of contents. 10 years ago, they broke tradition on January 1st. They asked my permission to go to an image, the first time that they did that. And since then, they've had images on the front cover ever since. So this was kind of a neat thing. And then I also gave them the permission to use this cover image in their own advertisement. So for about 3 years, this was their kind of the logo of the American Academy of Neurology. So that's quite an honor. Now shifting on, I'm going to give I'm not going to go into detail about many other lines of work that I've done, investigations that I've done in the art. It would take many hours to cover this thoroughly. I'll just give a couple of high points. This is Rockefeller Memorial Chapel at the University of Chicago. where it had several exhibits. This hardly, you can hardly consider this a chapel. It really is a cathedral by European standards. And for example, carillon up here is the second largest carillon in the world. And we have a lot of international carillon performances and competitions taking place there. So it really is a cathedral. And here we're putting up pieces from two pieces from a sequence called Cosmic Consciousness. This is called Cassiopeia. This is 20 feet, 6 meters wide piece on work on canvas. And on the facing wall in the church is Veil, again the same size. This a few years later, we put it up at the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago as part of an international Hittite conference. And these pieces are now in a permanent collection of the Oriental Institute. And this is a detailed view of one of the pieces. And here you see the neuronal patterns that are included. Here I'm including the cosmic issues. I'm expanded besides our own neural patterns on a cosmic sense, so that there's a sense of consciousness permeating the universe. Transformed images taken from the Hubble spacecraft. And in the photographs underlying it are, in this particular piece, are about 300 photographs I took at Çatalhöyük in Turkey, which may very well be the oldest city in human history, which I visited the excavations that are taking place there, and hypothesized this may be the site of the origin of Indo-European language and culture. So this I was dealing with origins, not just cosmic origins and our consciousness origins, but also linguistic and cultural origins, also in these two pieces. Other series of work are the site-specific installations. I took works I did on canvas, mounted them on board, and chopped them up into these palm-sized pieces, which then, using tape, removable tape, can install them. This particular piece, it was in downtown Chicago, and they call it mirror neurons. Two figures sort of reflecting each other in a kind of a dancing motion, a circular dancing motion, and you may very well be acquainted with the term mirror neurons, that these may underline the sense of empathy for others, understanding of others, and disruption of the mirror neuron system may be a cause of autism in some individuals. This image was picked up by Oxford University Press and appeared on one of their books, Consciousness and the Social Brain. The author is a professor of neurobiology at Princeton University. And for social issues and consciousness, my piece of mirror neurons really fits very, very well. Oops. Other installation, this is at the Lubeznik Center for Arts in Michigan City, Indiana, about an hour and a half away from here. This dealt with the Colretsia cells, which are important in organizing the development of our cerebral cortex, where neurons migrate and the cells organize the migration of the cells. And here you see they even migrated up to the ceiling of the pieces here. Now, this center is a cultural center in northern Indiana, and not far is Gary, Indiana, which is a very impoverished city, mostly African American, and they have daily school groups coming to the art center for art education and exposure. And during the month that this exhibit was up, the tour leaders at the center would bring kids up here, school groups, explain to them about the mind, the brain, and what this piece is all about. So it's very gratifying that many times as school groups come up, even before they were able to say anything, the kids would look around and say, wow, this has got something to do with the mind, something to do with the brain. Even kindergartners will catch on to this concept automatically. There was some sort of innate connection taking place, so that was very satisfying. So it served an educational purpose during the time that this installation was up. Now, this is in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Georgia Institute of Technology. The wall is 10 meters across, hippocampal memory. And again, another installation that I did and gave opportunity to discuss with the public there, memory functioning and Alzheimer's disease. And in the center, I have two figures here, sort of dancing. It takes two to tango. These are, you know, these are, would be about 6 feet tall. So using these things to educate the public about the neurobiological issues. And then Ingrid mentioned my light sculptures. This installation at Rockefeller Memorial Chapel. These pieces, each of these pieces it has 3 layers of polycarbonate through which the lights come through. The colors are constantly changing, and you just see one static image of them right as they appeared right now. There's 3 layers of polycarbonate, and with images on there, and I use 3 layers to kind of an analogy to layers of consciousness, subconsciousness, and unconsciousness. So that's purposely done that way. And each piece has its own particular theme, and some of them include images of portraits. There's one dealing with Beckett and his waiting for Godot. Excerpts from it are included, besides my own brain scans, EEGs, which have Beckett's portrait included, and then the word Godot and excerpts from the play are included in here. Now, this is the appearance of the chapel during that time that these pieces were on display. And these pieces here are distributed and dealing here with, in part, social society and stratification. And each of these pieces emit light, and they accept light from the others. So they're sort of portraits of us as individuals. And there's actually groupings of 3 of them. And here's a group of 3. When it's hard in the photograph to actually see this properly, but if you're there during exhibit, you've seen the 3 here. So there's 3 groupings of 3 separate locations, 3 societal groupings. The central one, closest to the center of the pinnacle where the altar would have been, is right at the center, is Sigmund Freud, dedicated to Fermis, flanked by Beckett and by Kafka. Appropriate location for the center triumvirate or the central trinity in this particular piece. The one piece here, which you don't see it very well, but you see the size is much bigger. It's much bigger because it's much farther away. It's isolated and separated. And this is my own dreams, and this is a portrait of the artist as being separate from society. Again, there's just another image of these sculptures as the lights are changing. Now, I was requested then about a year later to install these at a newly renovated building at the University of Chicago campus. This is the Stefanovich Institute on the Formation of Knowledge. The building was built in 1893, along with the other buildings originally, and they had fallen into disrepair. They received a $10 million grant from Mr. Stefanovich and to rebuild it. And as they rebuilt the building, they put in a 3-story atrium. And as an opening, they asked me to do a specific installation. So my light sculptures were incorporated. And these whirling pieces, and here we're installing them. And these were hung off the ceiling, and they rotated throughout the several months of exhibit that they were there. So very, very impressive. And through the glass panels, overlooking the quadrangles at the University of Chicago. So it was very much in the center of all activity of the campus. The university asked me to donate these 4 pieces to them, and they're on, which I did. That was 4 years ago, and these pieces are still there on display, and the lights are still changing color constantly, nonstop, 24/7, 4 years, and still burning brightly. And in return for the gift, they named the atrium after me. So a physical portion of the University of Chicago has been named after me. So I'm very, very honored by that. Now, if you think about it, Stefanovich donated $10 million to have the building named after him, but you don't see his name anywhere on the building. I donated 4 sculptures, and you see my name up. Now, what does that make the value of one of my sculptures? It's in the million+ category, doesn't it? Anyway. Just an idea. Now, for the past couple of years, besides light sculptures, I decided that I wanted to expand my artistic repertoire into other things and to incorporate archaeology and ancient anthropology. And this is a 251 boulder installation that we just finished this past summer installing in Lithuania near a sacred mound. Now, this has been a project that's taken 3 years to develop. Now, and to put something like this up is no joke. These sacred mounds are protected historical sites by the government. In other words, you can't simply show up there and put up a McDonald's next to one. That would not be allowed. We had to go to not only get all the permission from the local people and get their consent to do all of this stuff and their active involvement, but we had to go through the Lithuanian government agencies with proposals and explanations and to get permission to do all of this stuff. So it's a very complex process just to get the permission to start doing it. And then these boulders are big. They require, you can't simply carry them in your back pocket and bring them here. So, and they did require a lot of heavy lifting. And so we did that over the course of 3 years. And we finalized it, even this giant boulder, with an explanatory plaque here. Now, this deals with the distribution of these pieces, deals with archaeological diggings done in the 1930s by Maria Gimbutas. She's a very famous Lithuanian archaeologist. She actually defined the origins of where Indo-Europeans came from, and her Kurgan hypothesis was based on genetic analysis over the past couple of years, was shown that she was correct, and most of the other academicians were incorrect. And she also explored the origins of the ancient European cultures preceding Indo-European arrival, of the matrifocal nature of the peace-loving, non-warring matrifocal population that lived across all of Europe. And she discovered that and wrote about it. And she coined the term Mother Goddess, which may be something that you've heard of. Well, one of her digs from the 1930s is in a burial site in Lithuania. It was the basis for the distribution of all of these boulders. So we took her archaeological diggings and put the boulders out in keeping with one of the sites where she herself had worked. So this is kind of imitating her, and it was when we started this project was the 100th anniversary of her birth to sort of honor her. And there is a celestial component to this piece of linking these boulders to stars that are visible in the night sky. At this time, also there is this ancient Lithuanian legends that when a person passes away, their bodies are buried, but their soul goes up and turns into a star. So this is connecting the stellar cosmic consciousness with our own worldly sites. Now, the boulders themselves are, like they're sort of roundish in size, sort of a little bit like brains in size. So we've been now, over the past 2 summers, inviting student groups. These are high school students. This is this past summer. And I explained to them the work that I've been doing in neurology, neurobiology, and I invite them to participate in painting the boulders. They use sort of water-based paints, which come off. They're not permanent-based paints. And I invite them to come up with their own interpretations and own ideas, include ancient history, Lithuanian history, the history of the sacred mound, the archaeological discoveries of Gimbutas, and their own memories and thoughts, and incorporate them in profiles that they paint on these sort of boulders, brain boulders, I want to call them. And these are some of the students at work doing these things, and many of these pieces are very beautiful, very successful sort of neuronal patterns, interpretations using many different colors to actively involve the kids in these particular things. And of course, these are open to their own. This is then my own boulder. These boulders are numbered, and they have ownerships. You can sort of see the aluminum plates that have been put on all of mine. I asked 3 girls here to do their own interpretations of my boulder. They did their own take on it. and creativity. Even though I explained the neurobiological basis on it, people are creative, and we do live in the Barbie world. And so this was this past summer one of the masterpieces that showed up, imitating our brains at work. So you see what's important in life, Barbies. Anyway, now that's incorporating the youth in terms of the stone installations, but I've also incorporated them in dance and in music and in song. And in the background, this is now these are the YouTube videos that I had. I'll just my piece that the music was composed. The music was composed by high school students. The songs were they performed by them and danced by choreo. Of course, the teachers are involved. The dance teachers and art teachers, music teachers are involved in this, of course, so they're not doing it blindly. But this is a performance that the high school student group did based on the image that you see one of my paintings in back the Delphi symbol. And then this is another one. This is now Siberia Souls, one of the pieces that you see here in the background. And then finally, just another very brief one. This one dealt the Siberia Souls with deportation and the sound of the trains. Now, that was those performances were done a year ago, and now more recently, I've been working parallel excerpts from the Voynich manuscript, some theories about what it was used for. It's a women's health manual that was sunk in the Gregorian chanting. That's my sort of final result in terms of what the purpose, what it was for. And there's excerpts of it. This was performed 2 weeks ago, and a number of YouTube videos are already up of this group of women a cappella singing from the Voynich manuscript. But during this performance, which took place 2 weeks ago, in addition, there were students who played musical compositions that they themselves composed, and there's and just 3 days ago there was a report about this concert on Lithuanian television, and that also is on my YouTube, but it's in Lithuanian. You wouldn't understand it, but if you want to see it, it's there. It's about 3-minute news report. And what's really cool is Laura. She's one of the girls. She's a high school student in Lithuania. She performed piano. She played a very beautiful performance. But she was asked, why did you do this? Why did you create the music, and why did you perform it? And what she said was, well, the idea is very simple. Not only can Pleiopolis create, but I can also. So that's the sense of creativity and being able to do things. Sort of the kids pick up on it, and they're trying to do it in different forms. So not just brain boulders and painting, but also in dance and music and in different areas of composition. Now, finally, I just wanted to mention a little bit about some of my most recent work that I've done over the past couple of years. I got a little bit tired of doing traditional artwork where you hang on the wall or you stand up on a pedestal. And I thought one way to, if you're dealing with the neurobiology, you want to make it accessible to people, well, want to take it and put it into a form that you can then put it next to you, handle it, touch it, feel it, actually use it, put it next to your face, feel its warmth. Scarves would be a wonderful way of doing it. And so I've been dealing with, over the past 3 years, transforming my artwork into silk works of art, which then can blend with your own inner being. And I call this series Spellbound in Silk. And this is then the piece Dreams Explorations in Silk being modeled in front of the painting. Non-isolation displacement. Again, this is modeled in front of the original piece itself. Annalie Quiroz is the model here. Vera Jacoba was the photographer for me, the images. The scarves are all the same size. I decided this, a lot of my artwork is large. I wanted to have these large, more properly call them silk wraps. They're all the same size, 140 by 140 centimeters in size. And thus far today, I've created a total of 40 of them, different ones. And these are just some of the examples during fashion shows that have taken place. And it is fun to participate in these events. There was one here in Chicago a month ago. Next weekend, there's one downtown in Palmer House, which is a very beautiful historical building. I'll be my scarves performing there, showing them the 25 models. That's going to be kind of fun. And of course, it's really wonderful dealing with such a bevy of beauties. That's sort of a bonus, a big bonus to the work I'm doing. And it's successful already. I've had L'Officiel, this is a major fashion magazine in Europe. We already have 2 write-ups, very, very complimentary write-ups that have taken place in the journal. And this is now 2 months ago. This is just a 1-minute video to show you some of the models. This is during New York Fashion Week that took place two months ago.
Till we weren't built a home and watched it burn. I didn't want to leave you, I didn't want to lie. Started to cry, but then remembered I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours, see things you don't understand. I can take myself dancing, and I can hold my own head. Yeah, I can love me better than you can.
Now, just to finish up on the latest thing, is which I announced just about 2-3 weeks ago, is to create. I've sort of created my own scarves using my own artwork, and I thought, well, and this gives an opportunity for people to take my art and to enjoy it and to feel it, to touch it, to use it. But let me take it one step further. Let me invite to produce custom design scarves that people would then order. They send me images that they want to incorporate. I'd work with them and come up with bespoke scarves. And I've had I had 2 of them. This one I finished it a week ago. This was ordered by Jurgita Ušinskienė. She's the chairman of radiology at Lithuania's National Cancer Institute, and she wanted to have images of her forefather, where her forefathers are from, a small village in Lithuania. So we worked with her and created this scarf. I just hasn't been printed yet. This is just the image of it. It's being printed now. And just yesterday, this one we finished up. This is Nancy Kunz. She's a child neurologist here in Chicago at Lurie Children's. She specializes in neuromuscular diseases, and she's very much involved in all of the genetic advances taking place to treat children with genetic disorders affecting their musculature. And so this is something that's and this I just completed yesterday, actually, this piece. So there's more information on my websites, silkneuroart.com for the silk scarves. More general information about my art, my background on pleiopolis.com, inviting everyone to follow me. On Instagram, that's the place where I myself personally put a lot of updates of what's taking place. Facebook, a girl helps me to do that. And then my YouTube videos on my YouTube channel. So please follow these things if you'd like to have updates in terms of what's happening in my world of artistic explorations. Well, thank you very much, Ingrid. I'm honored to be invited to talk today. And I think I did this with time to spare.
Well, I thank you, Andreas, for this incredible presentation. I was looking at some of the special comments that have been made of your artwork over the years. And one by Toby Lanu in What's Up in Art, Washington, D.C. commented that you have a metaphysical mind. Alan J. Artner of the Chicago Tribune stated that Andreas Pliopoulos is a neurologist and neuroscientist who also happens to be a shrewd artist. He has been involved with some of the strongest contemporary currents: abstract painting, conceptual art, temporary installations, photography, drawing upon the content of one profession to feed the other. And I think this is very much in the vein of Leonardo da Vinci, who spoke so strongly about making connections between different disciplines of sciences and the arts. And finally, a quote from Danguole Andrijauskas, hard to say the name, in The Art of Medicine from Vilnius, physician, artist, but above all, philosopher. And certainly your work exemplifies those concepts very articulately. When I looked at those final scarves that you created, the one for the neuroradiologist, it looked to me like that arbor vitae sort of pattern. It also looks like the neuronal network, but it was exceptionally beautiful, both in texture and in colors. And I wondered, looking back on your very illustrious career where you combined neuroscience with art, how were you able to stream those two very demanding professions throughout your life? How were you able to allot adequate time to both of them? Or was it because they both stimulated each other?
Well, it was difficult. It was very, very difficult to do that. One had to allocate time. And for a lot of aspects of this artwork that I've done, when you do medicine, you do make money, so you do have financial resources. So I was able to hire people to help me out. So there's a lot of the technical kinds of things. People helped me out because I hired them to do things for me. But that's nothing new. That's the way art was. Leonardo da Vinci hired people to help him out. All the masters did. There were shops working. So it wasn't him sitting there with a canvas and no one in the room. There were other people working on aspects of it, doing things too. So that's a standard in the world of art to have teams of people helping out. So that's one thing that did it. The other thing was organization. You had to be very careful how I organized my time and how I did things. And it's very easy to get carried away, not carried away, but overwhelmed with responsibilities. And so I was able to craft my medical professional work in such a fashion that did provide open time. And this was something I did very consciously. And I looked for opportunities. I picked up opportunities and did it where I could keep the work hours limited and not have them turn into 80 hours a week workload, which is very easy to happen. So it's a matter of determination and a matter of planning it out appropriately. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that. And so it was difficult.
I was also curious with all of the magnificent pieces that you've created, whether there was one particular project that was the most satisfying, and which one of those you might single out and why?
Well, I think the thing that's evolved over time now is to me, the most satisfying is I have all these high school students who are very interested in expanding their own world of creativity in aspects of things that I've done to use their own, start as a basis for their own creative expressions, and expanding it into music, into dance, motion. To me, that's the most satisfying. And to me, that was just 3 days ago, Laura says, the thing is that Pliopoulos is the only one who can be creative. I can be creative too. So if I can be incentive for youth young people to be creative, to kind of explore their own abilities, innate abilities, and foster that's incredible, and that's taking place, and that's the most satisfying. That's all the most recent, actually, activity.
Well, I think that was probably one of the most impressive parts for me, how you stimulated the imagination, first of those kindergarten students, who saw your wall displays, and then the high school students who became involved in that incredible, what should I say, rock sculpture in Lithuania, and how they contributed to it. And I think being able to stimulate the imagination and the creativity of the next generation is probably one of the most deeply gratifying ventures one can be involved with. And so it seems to me that your art is also stimulating tremendously the neural development of these young people. So for that, I really must thank you. And I'm just delighted by your lecture today, and I think it's given a great deal of food for thought for all of us, and particularly, I think art making people more sensitive and more empathetic to each other. I noticed in the dance, one of the dances, they were couples, and they were like the coupled neurons that you exhibited in one of your artworks. So I think they picked up on that theme very well. So I really must thank you, and I thank the audience for listening. And I'm pleased to say that our schedule for next year is already all booked up. And we look forward to a continuing exciting future in neurology through art and time. And thank you again to our superb speaker today.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Ingrid, for having me. Very kind of you.
It was my delight. And I should share one comment here from Rashida Mangera, who I'm sure you remember from Sick Kids. Thank you so much for sharing how well you blended the art and science in this amazing presentation. Truly stunning career. Our paths crossed at Sick Children. Thank you again. So many thanks for your amazing presentation.
Oh, thank you.
And I will therefore conclude the session now.